Hello everyone and welcome to the penultimate round of the Prague Chess Festival. It's round 8 and it's Vidit who is leading the tournament against David Navara, who is playing on with home field advantage, but so far he didn't really get his break in the tournament. And if Vidit can win this game, it's going to be, well, it's really going to do wonders for his standings, as he's already leading the tournament by a point and a half ahead of everyone. And I really wanted to show this game yesterday. It's a really amazing game, but I had to go to Zagreb. I couldn't do it, so that's why I'm only showing it now. But you will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's check it out. Vidit opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, knight to f3, and b6. Navara goes for the Queen's Indian defense, which is somewhat bold, as AlphaZero pretty much refuted the whole idea. With a3, bishop to b7, and bishop to f4 now. With d5 striking the center, c captures, knight captures. Now you could capture with the pawn, but then you block your own light square bishop's diagonal. So knight captures, attacking the bishop, and the bishop back to g3. And here knight to d7. Now maybe this knight is coming to f6, but also you are supporting this c5 thrust. And here there is a game where queen to c2 was played, and there is one game where knight bd2 was played. But here we have e4, and it is already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So what's happening here? The knight goes back to f6, and now e5 once again, asking, do you want to maybe go to d5 to e4? But Navara goes after the bishop, knight to h5. He wants to get rid of the dark square bishop. We have knight to c3 and bishop to e7. Continuing development, preparing to castle, and Vidit continues with bishop to c4. With the knight awkwardly placed on d7, Vidit now gains control of the d5 square, and he has some idea of maybe executing d5. And here, castling is definitely an idea, but Navara goes for a6. He says, okay, your d5 idea doesn't have any merit to it. You are welcome to push it if you want. So Vidit pushes it with d5. And now again, if knight c5, you guard the e6 square, it's not a problem. If captures, you can trade the queen. So white, it does look a bit weird for black, but black should be able to come out okay. However, Navara goes for e captures on d5. We have bishop captures on d5. Now, the problem is if captures, you do have some problems here. For example, you still can't castle. If you castle, then e6 comes with a double attack here. So your only option is knight f6 for the knights to be guarding each other, but now captures on f7, and black could be somewhat weakened here. Queen goes back. Now already knight to g5 is an idea, and it's a tough position to play. So instead, after bishop captures on d5, we have knight captures on g3 first by Navara, h captures on g3. And now c6, saying that you should really move your bishop, or you could try something that I don't think that actually works. And here we reach the position from the thumbnail. Without further ado, Vidit goes for it. Bishop captures on f7. And I mean, who wouldn't? It either goes or it doesn't, but if this goes, you're basically winning the tournament. So king captures on f7, and now how do you continue the attack? Of course, e6 with check, saying I either win my piece back, or you have to bring your king deeper into the center of the board. So king captures on e6 is the only move that really gives advantage to black. Not advantage, but it is the only way to kind of justify that c6 move and allowing the sacrifice. And here is the moment where we really need to decide what to do. Here, well, we could even award Vidit the Morphy head for this. So let's just do that. Vidit, here you go. Here's a Morphy head. Feel free to pause the video. What would you play here, and how would you continue this this attack? Well, I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on being a spectacular attacker if you found the following idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, Vidit played queen to e2 check. It's a good move, but there is a better one. For example, queen to b3 check, not so much, because king d6 and then the king runs away. You don't really have anything going on here. However, queen to a4 is incredibly strong, but it's such a disgusting engine line that I will only show because it's well, it deserves to be showed. So after this, you cannot go something like king d6 to try and run away because of the simple queen f4 check, king goes back and knight to d4 is mate. So that idea doesn't work. So after queen to a4, you'd have to go knight to c5, attack the queen to c4 check, king to f6, and now the move that's incredibly hard to find, especially when your queen is still on d1, when you're pondering on queen to a4, rook to h4, and this is just finding all these moves is pretty much impossible. Now the problem is the rook is coming to f4. If rook f4 check, queen f7, it's game over. So let's say knight d3 check. The knight is guarded by the queen. Also the f4 square is now guarded. King to f1 getting out of check. Now c5 opening up this bishop's diagonal, and now rook to d1, threatening to win back the piece. So b5, you attack the queen. Now knight e4 check. If you move the king, then queen to e6 will be deadly, so you have to capture it, and after queen captures c4, you manage to keep your knight, but now finally, why rook to h4 was so strong, rook to f4 with check, and the king has no moves, so what do? You have to capture it, and now, of course, you lose the queen, but not just yet. Queen captures on f4, king e6, now you deliver a check, knight d4 check, king goes back, king d7, now knight to f5 check, again king back to c8, now you will capture, rook captures, bishop captures, and now knight to d6 check. And here you do have two rooks and the bishop against the queen and knight, but it is a winning attack for white. For example, king d7, now you're going to go knight to f7, and you lose the rook, and once you lose the rook, it's game over, because if you try and save the rook, then it's knight to e5 with check, king moves to guard the rook, of course, queen to e4 now with an attack against the rook, and also threatening a lot of nasty discoveries. So after the rook moves, now knight g6 check, finally you go after the rook, and if king f7 to defend it, now just captures, and if captures, queen to f5 check, picks up the rook, so that's only one of the lines. But really, after this king captures on e6, really incredible stuff that happens on the board after queen to a4. Of course, it's impossible to calculate everything. This was only one line, and there are endless possibilities that are possible after queen to a4. But okay, Vidit goes for queen to e2 with check. We have king to f7, and now he goes for queenside castles. Now, it's very important to have the rook on the same file as the queen, and also you might have ideas of a nice rook lift now, not with rook to h4 obviously, but maybe you're gonna go rook to e1, or maybe rook to h5, maybe to f5, who knows. Bishop to f6, and now comes knight to e4, again. Going for knight to d6 check, the bishop on b7 is undefended, and queen to e7 now. And here again, Vidit has to decide how to go about this position. Now again, he goes for knight to d6 check to win back the material right away. Queen to c4 check, or queen to c2 check, getting the queen away from the e file, because that square belongs to the rook. That's why queen to a4 was also incredibly powerful in a lot of lines, because you get the d1 square and the e1 square for your rooks. But okay, let's say queen to c4 check. You cannot block with the queen because of knight checks. Then you just exchange a pair of knights, and then the other knight checks and forks the queen. So you'd have to move, and then rook h to e1, and you get this, again, incredibly complicated position. Where, okay, you've sacrificed the piece for the attack, but this rook is not coming into play anytime soon. This is really anyone's game. However, Vidit decided to go for material equality. He played knight d6 check. We have king to f8. Now he traded queens, captures, and knight captures on b7. So now he grabbed the piece back, and he's up a pawn. Sorry, not up a pawn. The material is equal, and also his pawns are kind of doubled here. We have knight back to f6, and now knight to e5. So okay, he's still very much ahead in development, and this is still a much better position for white. Now the c6 pawn is under attack, but knight to d5, saying that, okay, if you capture the pawn, now I have rook to c8, and I'm gonna win back some material. For example, rook captures on d5, rook captures here with check, king moves, and now you will be up a pawn, but still I'm very confident that I can play this. And it's hard to imagine how this knight will come out of the well, his cage, because these two squares are guarded twice. You're gonna play king f7, bring the rook over to b8. Not something you want to do. So instead, after this move, king to b1, not interested in occupying the same square for after rook to c8 comes. So now rook to c8. The pawn is nicely defended. And now rook h to e1. If you're thinking about knight to g6, it looks very interesting, but it's not. Because after knight checks, you're going to move the king, knight captures on h8, rook captures on h8, and your knight on b7 is lost. Whatever you play, next move is rook b8, rook captures on b7. And your black will just have 2 pieces for a rook, which will of course be much better for black. So, after rook to c8, we have rook h to e1, centralizing the rooks, and now, again, an interesting tactic by Navara, really going for the stubborn defense, refusing to give Vidit this point. Bishop captures on a3. Incredible stuff. Point is, after captures, you have knight to c3 check, and now you're going to pick up the rook. King here, knight captures, rook captures, king captures on d1, and now rook to c7, going after the knight. But after knight to d8, it will be very safe for white. You will not be able to win back either of the knights. So white will again be much better here. You're threatening to pick up the c6 pawn, it's attacked twice, and also you're threatening knight to e6 check, which would win the rook. Definitely a difficult position. But Vidit doesn't go for it. Instead of capturing the bishop, he goes for knight captures on c6. And okay, now he wants captures, but now Navara goes back, bishop to b4, attacking the rook here, knight captures, and now rook to d7. A very nice rook lift, and the other rook lift will soon follow. We have h5, trying to get this rook into the game this way, and now knight to d6, attacking the rook. We have rook back to a8, and now rook e to e7. And now looking at this position, you might be thinking, it's finally over. Vidit is finally winning this. But as you all know, anything can happen in chess. So rook to h7, defending the pawn, and now knight to e4. Sorry, that's not e4. Knight to e4. Again, with some very sneaky ideas. For example, if Navara tried to, let's say, trade one of the rooks, rook e8, then it's a very simple captures, and the knight f6 check. Checks the king, defends the rook, and also, if you do nothing, just knight captures rook, so you'd have to capture it, and then rook captures on h7, a winning endgame for white. So, after knight to e4, rook to h6, again, Navara finds very, very active ideas. We have rook captures on g7, he gives up this pawn for rook to d8, for rook to d8. Now, asking, do you want to capture this rook? And then I'm going to capture this rook. And here, Vidit really needs to decide what to do. Here, Vidit played b3. The problem is, if you move the rook somewhere, let's say here, for some reason, then rook to d1 is mate. You, of course, cannot allow this. You should go, however, for something like check, and then after king moves, deliver another check, king moves, and then b3, make breathing room for the king. Now there's no rook to d1 mate. And now, next move, you can go check here, bring the knight to f6, and continue your winning endgame. However, b3 was played right away, and exchanging the rook really just helps Navara. I mean, having two very nice pigs on the 7th, that's not something you want to throw away. But Vidit does it for some reason. We have rook captures on d7, rook captures, and now a5. And now we have this position where it's still white is better, Vidit is up a pawn, but it's a double g pawn, and it's hard to say how he will claim his advantage. And it's always very unpleasant. You were better, you sacrificed for the attack, you were winning, you know you were winning, then you're not winning, you're still better, but you still want to prove that you are completely winning. So that's the worst place you want to be, as a mindset when you're playing a chess game. So f3, we have rook to c6 now, with ideas of maybe going for rook to c2, going for some g2 pawn ideas. So rook back to d2, not allowing this. King to f7. Navara starts improving the position of the king. King to b2, and now king to e6. We have knight to c3, and now rook to d6, offering a rook trade. But rook e2 check, king to f5, although capturing was also possible, and then starting the march with the king. If you could reach the b5 square, should be very good for you. But okay, rook e2 check, king f5, and then now knight to e4, attacking the rook, rook to d1, and knight back to c3, pushing the rook back, rook to d3, again repeating, knight to b1, and now knight to d5. And okay, we have king to c2 attacking the rook, knight back to b4 with check. King to b2, we have knight back to d5 by Navara, saying that I'm very satisfied with a draw here, but Vidit declines. Knight a3, he wants to go to c4 and go after the b pawn. Knight to e3, and now comes knight to c4 as planned, offering a knight trade as the b pawn is under attack. Knight captures on c4 with check, b captures, and now a4 by Navara. Now Navara has a passed pawn. We have king to c2 attacking the rook, but rook to b3. We have rook to d2 and now rook to b4 attacking the c4 pawn. We have king to c3 and now pushing the king back. Rook to b3 check. King to c2, rook b4. Again, Navara offers a draw. King to c3, rook to b3 check, king to d4. Now Vidit again declines a draw. And now a3, Navara starts pushing his passed pawn. Rook to a2 blocking, and now king to e6, not allowing the king some very important squares here. If king d5, king here, and if you capture the pawn somehow, could be dangerous. So c5, but now this is really pushing it. Yes, you do get a passed pawn, but so does Navara. Navara now has two passed pawns, and that's not going to be pleasant. We have g4, Vidit creates another passed pawn, h captures, f captures, and b4 now. We have g5, and now comes rook to b2. Of course, you cannot afford the trade, rook a1, but now a2. Now b3 and rook to b1 is the threat. How are you ever going to stop this? We have g6, but now b3. We have c6. If g7, it's still not a problem, just king to f7 blocking, and if c6, rook c2, now the rook covers the c file, the king covers g8. White has no way of queening the pawns. So c6 right away, but now rook to c2. We have rook to f1, cutting the king off from the defense of the pawn after it's pushed, but now b2. We have g7, and now, of course, rook captures on g2. We have c7, and now king to d7, and with now the rook covering this square, the king covering this square, b1 and a1 are both winning. It was in this position on move 64 that Vidit resigned the game, and finally a well-deserved victory for David Navara, who really, completed a Herculean task by stopping the attack and then by winning this endgame. But like I said, it's the worst kind of mindset to have when you're better, then you're winning, then you're no longer winning, but you're still better. You can still just continue playing chess, but you want to force a win because you were better at some point in the game, and then this happens. So really tough break for Vidit, who really wanted this win to take the tournament one whole round before it ends. But still, we do have the standings here, and unfortunately, we do have to take away the hat, the Morphy head away from Vidit, as the attack was not successful. But yeah, here are the standings. Vidit still in the lead because he was a 1.5 point in the lead, followed by Nikita Vitigov and Alireza Firuja and Antin David Anton Gihara with 4.5. Young Krzysztof Duda, Sam Shanklin, and David Navara now with 4 out of 8. Marcus Ragar, Pentala Hare Krishna with 3.5, and Nils Grandelius still in last place with 2.5 out of 8. So yeah, really an impressive game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Really a brutal attacking game, and that I do say, okay, it's a disgusting engine line, that queen to a4 idea that we discussed. But if Rashid Nejmedinov had this position, or maybe Mihail Tal, who knows what would happen here, or maybe even Paul Morphy himself. In positions like these, true attackers, did wonders. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Arkadiusz Nitsevich, Ji Peng, Will Lockett, Rohit Vishnoy, and Tamia Ryan for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Prague Chess Festival. We're going into the final round, continuing the Paul Morphy saga, and of course checking up on your wonderful suggestions. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.